For a long time in England, the story schools have told young people has been fairly predictable. Work hard, get the right grades, go to university, and that's the main route to success. And if you don't follow that path, it can sometimes feel like you're choosing a lesser option, even if you're talented, practical, and ready to build real skills. Andy Burnham wants to challenge that idea. His argument is simple. We've leaned too heavily toward an academic model, and it's left vocational education treated like the backup plan instead of a respected first choice. In his view, students have been sent a message that the academic track is what earns approval and status, and he wants to replace that with a system where technical and practical routes carry the same weight. So what is he actually proposing? Under Burnham's reforms, students starting in year 10 will be able to mix the core academic subjects, English, math, and science, with technical pathways designed locally and linked directly to employers. This isn't about scrapping exams or pushing everyone into trades. The aim is to keep academic study strong, but put hands-on learning alongside it as an equally serious option. Burnham's pitch is that young people shouldn't have to wait until they leave school to discover what work really looks like, or which industries might suit them. Instead, the curriculum could connect them early to real job sectors, with practical experience running in parallel to their GCSE studies. A lot of this builds on what Greater Manchester has already been doing with something called the MBacc. The idea there is to connect schools with employers in fields like engineering, construction, healthcare, and digital technology, the kinds of sectors that need skilled people and offer meaningful careers. Burnham wants a scale that approaches far beyond Greater Manchester. And here's where it becomes a much bigger national story. If this model was rolled out across the country from 2028, mayors and local leaders would gain much more influence over what schools teach. That would be a major shift of power away from Whitehall, arguably one of the biggest in decades, because it changes who gets to shape education. Not just central government, but local areas responding to local needs. There's also a historical point that's worth clearing up, because it often gets blurred in headlines. You'll sometimes hear this described as the biggest education change since academies and free schools. But the timeline matters. Academies didn't begin as a conservative invention. They were launched under Tony Blair's Labor government back in 2002, originally aimed at turning around struggling schools. What the coalition government later did, under David Cameron with Michael Gove as education secretary, was expand academies dramatically through the Academies Act of 2010 and introduce free schools, which is what really reshaped the school system at scale. Burnham's proposals connect to a wider economic reality, too. Britain has persistent shortages in areas like skilled technicians, engineering, and construction. At the same time, the graduate job market has become more crowded and competitive, which means a university degree isn't the automatic golden ticket it was sometimes assumed to be. Burnham's core message is that education should line up more closely with real labor markets, and that students should be able to gain practical experience while they're still working through their school qualifications. Now, whenever you talk about vocational routes in school, the hard questions arrive quickly, and honestly, they're fair questions. Are we going to push children into life choices too early? Will some students get quietly steered into practical tracks because expectations are lower? And on a practical level, can employers actually provide enough high-quality placements without it turning into box ticking or cheap labor? There's also the cultural worry. If technical education rises, do arts and humanities get treated as less valuable? Do we end up creating a new hierarchy, just flip the other way? These concerns matter because education isn't only about jobs. It's also about broad knowledge, personal development, and giving young people genuine choice. But supporters of stronger vocational pathways would say this has been overdue for years. They'll point to countries like Germany and the Netherlands, where technical and academic routes can sit side by side, both respected, both rigorous, both seen as legitimate ways to build a life. The argument is that England doesn't need fewer academic achievers. It needs to stop treating technical excellence as second class. Politically, Burnham is clearly trying to reshape what success looks like. His phrase about valuing the hard hat as much as a graduation cap is more than just a slogan. It's an attempt to tell a different national story, one that speaks to people who feel practical skill, craft, and industry have been overlooked while the university path has been held up as the only respected destination. Whether this becomes a genuine turning point depends on the details, how fair access is protected, how good the employer partnerships really are, and whether society actually changes how it talks about vocational careers. Because in the end, this isn't only an education debate. It's a debate about status, opportunity, and what kinds of achievement we choose to celebrate.